let's start getting into workflow schemes. Okay. So, and then we'll come back and take a look at him and make sure he push published over. And let me drag this away so we can look, because we're going to need a lot of room here. Oh, I got a little fail here. Maybe these guys weren't exactly the same. Oh, I got a null identifier. I uploaded an empty image or something like that. Yeah, there is a configuration, and you can upload 0 files. There is a configuration to allow 0 content files, but that was probably in my WebDAV. Finder has a really bad way of whenever you drag things, the Mac OS will first create a 0 empty file, and then it will actually upload the file, and something must have happened with my WebDAV. But hey, it does tell you exactly why. I got a null file, probably in my image directory or something, or somewhere in my WebDAV. So that's troubleshooting your push publishing. But let's move on. We already saw a couple of successful push publishes, so I can go look for my 0 files later, or I could change my config and allow it. Okay, so workflows. So I want to create a brand new workflow scheme. Okay, so I can create, let's just call it product workflow. And I'll click save. And then I can start adding workflow steps. And maybe my first step would be, I'll call it editing. And then I'll add another workflow step of review. And then I'll add another workflow step, maybe published. And then from published, you want to have maybe archived, and you can keep going on and on. And then in each of those steps, you can go ahead and then, you can edit them and then say whether they're mandatory. You can schedule, some enabled actions. You can say what's your default sub action inside, action inside. And then you can start adding, well, if the very first thing that the content editors are doing is they're hitting this very first step, then I can go ahead and say, save. And the next step is just the current step. I don't want to move it to another step. I can decide what user groups. It automatically just saved it for me. Maybe I want, this guy, Joe, contributor, but he has a contributor role. So let me just go to contributor and add the role. And that way him and all his friends who are in the contributor role, they get access to this. And then there's the show when. Show this button next to the content whenever the user's editing, whenever they're looking at the list under the content tab, whenever it's either locked or unlocked, whenever it's a new piece of content, whenever it's already published, whenever it's unpublished, whenever it's archived. You can click all, if you want. And then you can say whether the user, whenever he clicks save, I wouldn't want him assigning to anyone because he clicks save. That's just for him or herself, right? And then assign to current user sounds right, but you could have it assigned to anyone, any user, and any role in the system, right? So we're just going to say, it goes to the current user. That's fine. And we don't have to even notify them. So I'll even take off the notify assignee and then just put, save content only as a sub action. Okay. And I can also add a whole ton of sub actions, and I can add my own sub actions to this in a matter of hours, not days or weeks. It's very, very easy to do. And we have starter files. So you want a new sub action here? Here you go. Here's the starter file. Throw your jar file in here, Okay. So 4i is approval. If we needed a committee approval, and that is a sub action, we could put user IDs, a list of emails, comma separated, or a list of role keys separated. Then I just say how many in this group of however many I put up here. I'll say 4. 4 of them have to click on the 4 eyes approval before it'll actually go to the next step in the workflow, as defined by the rest of the workflow step. And then I can put an HTML-rich velocity JavaScript or HTML email subject and email message, right? Pretty cool. I can even say, content.email here and give personalized emails to people, or and do velocity inside here, and just very HTML rich and smart. What are the other sub actions that we got here? And each of them can have potentially their own configuration. I could put a push now, and then all I have to do is say the name of my server, whichever one I get it. I just go to open it up in a new tab, and my configuration, my push publishing environment is called production, right? So I could even, click in here, and it's the environment name. So Amazon prod, and then I come back over here and I say that I want them push to Amazon prod, and you could do a comma separated list of multiple environments here as well, and it just automates the push. And then you say, do you want to automatically force push everything or leave that false? And I would say, man, I would leave that false. Maybe you could put another button that says force the push. You can do whatever you want, and you could put another push now, and just make it have a different button other than save, right? It should say push if you're going to do a push publish, right? You totally configure the buttons to, tell the user what they're doing with the sub actions. Then the push publish sub action brings up the dialog box. So whether you want a one-click push or whether you want a dialog box where they can control, depending upon their user skill level, where they can control the push and send to different environments, etc., whatever you want to do. You can set variable values. Here's a set value. You can send a custom email action. Once again, velocity JavaScript, content.email, content.anything. So if you got inbound marketing pages, I did an inbound marketing video over here on dotCMS.com where I installed live installed a Salesforce sub action. And that's in our videos section. I'll pass that to everybody. If I was a front-end developer, I'd definitely watch these 2 videos. Here's an inbound REST API forms. You should definitely watch that. I'll chat it to everyone. Those are really 2 good front-end developer videos to watch. So we have, in addition to our online courses, there's also there was a build with dotCMS series. We have occasionally, how to build fun stuff. This inbound marketing was where I did the Salesforce action in the workflow, and also have a complete kind of Thank you for joining us today. Workflow process where I'm injecting I built a recipe kind of foodnetwork.com website, and whenever they click on the website on a recipe and they want to download the PDF or save the Paprika app, which I really did build, then they just provide their first name, last name, and email, and then they submit the request. That goes into a workflow action because our REST API forms go directly in, you target any workflow you want. Then there's an automated response that sends the email using that send email sub action in the workflow. And so you can see it in the video, and it's just all happening. I go straight to my email, I open it up, there's my custom email, so I can receive my recipe as a PDF attachment. I get my Paprika app. I actually can install that right into Paprika, which is a recipe manager. Then you see the users actually later end up getting pushed because of the timed actions in the workflow and did they click on the link, did they actually visit the website. Then it validates them as a Salesforce contact and injects it over to Salesforce. I log into my test Salesforce account and I see the new custom sub action forcing my inbound marketing user over to my Salesforce validated contacts. So a lot of good information in that one for you that I just sent you via the GoToWebinar chat. Ton of different sub actions And of course, there's the published content, the reset the workflow, require certain specific multiple approvers, save the content, translate the content. So you can translate it into 40 different languages with one click of one button. All you have to do is put your service API key and, let's just say you have English, French, Spanish, German. If you create your content in German, you click this key, and as long as you have your Google Translate API key here, then it'll, if you create your German first, it'll create it in your French, your English, and your Spanish. If you create it in English first, you click Translate, it'll translate it to the others. Now, does Google Translate work perfectly? No. But is it 80% there at least, so that the workflow action might, in addition to Google Translate, it might say, send to the Spanish translators, or send to the German translators, or whatever you want, and you could even have a different button. You could say, translate to German, and then that sends it to one group, translate to Spanish, and then that sends it to another group, whatever you want it to do. It's totally customizable. One of the most flexible workflow systems that exist in CMSs. So I click here on, I've already got one already established here. So I'm going to take a look at this particular workflow. We're going to do a little bit of link checking in it, and I'm going to look right now at all the users and verify what they can do at each step, which this is totally new for 5.0. And so if I look at what my contributor can do, there's 3 different roles that I already know have been permissioned here. Contributor can't do much. He can send for a view, and that's about it, right? And we purposely made him a very limited guy. But what can the reviewer do? Reviewer can send for review, send to legal, return for edits, send to legal at each step. And what if I wanted to, even in legal approval, I wanted one of these other steps, which would be return for edits. Well, yeah, it's already here, but I can drag these around, and I can put these, anywhere I want in any of these workflow steps. So let's see. So let's see, is there any other action? I could put my published action over here. I can drag that around. I could put a full delete over here if I wanted to, and it copies the action so that you don't have to do it. You don't have to be putting it every single level, because obviously if we're logging in as the legal approver, he should be able to publish right from the get-go, right, in the editing step or in the review step. So you don't have to copy those actions, and as you highlight over, it's showing you where else that action is. So I can just delete it from that one copied spot, the highlight over here, and it shows me it's here and it's here, and I'll just kind of put them back to where they were supposed to be, right? Okay. So, and then if I look at my publisher legal here, he can do quite a bit, right? So that's my final role, my final managerial role, and a quick little view into how our nested roles are set up. There's a hierarchical role control here, which my publisher legal is controlling my reviewer is controlling my contributor, and publisher legal is the master of them all. He's got the keys to the whole bag, right? So anything I give to the contributor automatically passes up to the reviewer and publisher legal. This is the only instance where we have reverse role inheritance. That way, if the person underneath being managed by the other 2 managers gets access to anything, the managers automatically control it as well. So our permissions integrate fully into our workflows and really make a nice match for granular control over every little sub action that you can possibly see. And filter by even before you start using it to double check. You can even export workflow schemes. You can publish workflow schemes from one to another. And if you push content that's actually controlled by one of the workflow schemes, it takes the workflow and updates it as well. So here, if I click on my, let me make one little change to my workflows. Let's go in here, and let's say before he sends it for review, I'm actually going to make a change here. Okay. And I'm going to say, before you send it for review, buddy, I'm checking your links. So I'm going to add a link checker here. And if you look at the link checker, you can comma separate only certain lists of fields, or if you leave it blank, it just checks all of them. And I want that to be the very first thing that is done. Now, if I go to my file content type, called document, that's being controlled by this, I want to make sure he's got a long description, WYSIWYG. Oh, that's published date. It's just a text area. I want a WYSIWYG here. So I'll put a long description here. Just so I can create my links fast and easy. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my content. I'm going to go to my document type content. And I don't want to test this as me. I want to test it as my limited user, right? So I can log in as, test it as Joe. He is a limited contributor role user. I'll go to my content search manager, and he can only create content, contact us content or documents. So I'm going to add new content, and it's document. And I'm going to choose a file of some sort, a picture of a house. Sure. Maybe that's the product they're selling. And then here is a link to the architect site. And then I'll click on the little link editor. This is TinyMCE. By the way, you can totally, using the TinyMCE plugin that supplies to our clients, totally take away any of the buttons that you want here. The formats, are fed by the main CSS. So total customization is available there as well. And I'm just going to put in a bad link. HTTP. Okay, hopefully that doesn't work. And here would be my alt tag, And I click OK. So I got a bad link. But he can save his draft all he wants as long as he saves it to the right place, which he's not allowed to save. There he is allowed to save to the resources to our folder. Okay, so now it's saved just fine. And now we see the send for review, because that's when, it pops up whenever you don't have a lock on the content. Okay, so you have to save your content before you see the send for review button. So now he clicks on, and we can see our content is created right here. It's saved, right? He can't publish, right? So I'll open it back up. I just wanted to show you, that it was created on the back end. Then I click send for review. Yeah. Hey, can you check this? Which will give Jane, any reviewer role, because it's being assigned to the reviewer. We purposely did not allow this user to decide who's going to check this content. It goes to everyone who has that role, and then there's some sort of management process about who manages workflow tasks and then assigns them to people in that group, right? Which your workflow facilitates. Hey, can you check this content for publishing? And I click save, and then it says, you got a bad link in here, buddy. I'm not going to bother Jane. I'm not going to bother the reviewers. I'm not going to send them an email. I'm not going to send them links to this task. You need to fix this first. So that's kind of nice that you can forcibly say the link has to be fixed first. So I will just go to google.com just to be fast. And click OK. He's going to have to lock it for editing. He's going to have to save that change, or I could have put a save action in the send for review, but I didn't, so I'm going to be lazy. Okay, check this now, please. Okay. And now it sends just fine. And if he tries to look at this content again, it is now in the step review. So it gives you a little preview here, and he can't do anything now. It's out of his hands, right? now I can go ahead and log in as, so I'm going to log out as him. I'm going to click here in my tasks, and I'm going to log in as that second level user. And we already previewed this in our workflow, right? Because you can preview by role. So we go to her tasks, and she sees that little 5 JPEG that we just had, this guy do. So we click on it, and it sees every little, single change he's made, when he did it, what he did, the actions he took. I can make a comment and I could reassign it back to him. It gives me a preview of the file that was uploaded, shows me the URL, all of the metadata on the file, right? It could show more metadata, but Europe decided to be really kind to people who upload files. And so I can click edit content here and then go straight to my content. And then she can see only the exact buttons that I have configured in the workflow manager. She can either save it as draft or she can release the lock and send to legal, right? So let's just make it through the workflow. So she sends it to legal, makes some sort of comment, and then what kind of access does she have? Now we're out of our workflow task. The workflow task is no longer with her. We click on the content search manager, and now can she manage this document further? She can lock it for editing. She does have save as draft, and that's about it. It's out of her hands. It's really in the legal approval step, right? Now, what if legal approval, I could log in as, log out, and then I can log in as, there's a guy named Chris Publisher who has that publisher legal role. Now he'd have to go to his tasks. It's our Google Analytics dashboard as the default. And he can then see that here waiting for him as well as he's overloaded. He got a lot of tasks in his list. And so he goes to check it, and I think you guys get the idea now, on what he can do. And he can edit the content, return it for edits, publish it. If he returns it for edits, he can assign a specific person and say, this is no good, Joe contributor, do this again, save, and it goes back, right? So anything you want, very, very granular control over your content using workflow. And that kind of brings me to, let me bring it one step forward. It's kind of cool. You can even do crazy stuff like this. I'll publish it. And then once I do publish it, did I have somebody else had a lock on the, oh, it's locked by Jane. I'm a bad admin. I allowed that. My workflow didn't have an unlock on that. My bad workflow. So I'm just going to manually do it since my workflow step didn't include the unlock sub action. And then I will log in as him again. And Chris Publisher. And now we will save as draft. Editing. Oh, I must be missing a few steps on my workflow over here. It's just, we made new workflows for 5.0, so there's still a couple of steps missing here in the process. Yeah, I'm missing it here. So yeah, but you can add anything you wish, You can add that publish over here in the publish step. You can make sure that anyone who can publish content, current user, Chris Publisher, it's just a sample and you can manipulate it any way you want. But I just want to show it quickly and not spend more time on it. So let me unlock myself as the manager, take it away from Chris, publish it myself, and then finally show the thing that I wanted to show you, which was, do we not have a Twitter? It's in publish step. I guess for 5.0 we took it away. or we haven't put it on yet. There's a little tweet guy, a Twitter feed that I could add. Tweet, but maybe the VTL file is not there. So Twitter status update. I don't even know if he's hooked up. Yeah, he's not. Okay. Well, you could even, if you configured it and actually put the, then you can click on that button. It'll hook into your Twitter feed and pop up a light box. Let's see if I save that. Do I even get the light box? Probably not. It's in step published. I will probably not be able to. Place lock, republish. Oh, where's my little tweet guy? Anyway, I'd have to configure it to be able to do that anyway. So you can add as many custom workflow sub actions. Obviously, you got to test it before you before you actually hand it off to your users. But that's how you can step in as individual users and then test it out and see where you're missing steps that you need to place in the workflow.